like to encourage you to be turning to the book of Proverbs this morning. Proverbs chapter 31. We're going to go down and look at verses 28 and 29. And I would like to wish all of our mothers a happy Mother's Day. And for all of you who are grandmothers, which I think nearly all of us are, or y'all are, happy Grandmother's Day also. Whenever we look at God's inspired word, there's a lot said about mothers and motherhood and the blessings and the things that are not blessings because of that situation that God has given you guys. Now, this morning, I want to talk a little bit about, from the outside looking in, concerning motherhood. Because I'm going to be real honest with you, even though our society dictates the idea that I should know about motherhood, I don't. I'm from the olden days. I know a little bit about fatherhood, but I'm going to tell you, I do not have any more than a concept of what motherhood is really like. Now, I understand in the realm of reality that there's a lot of different ideas in our world concerning what is a mother, concerning motherhood, concerning all the aspects therein. And because of that, and because some choose not to be mothers, some can't become mothers, and they struggle with that, I understand that this is not applicable to every lady out there. But there is a reality. We all had one. Every person in this world had a mother. And that should be one of the great blessings of our lives. But that's what makes it difficult to talk about this topic, is that society has all these various concepts regarding motherhood. But those concepts come from the minds of people. And they many times, if not most of the time, are in contrast to what one finds within the inspired Word of God. Now, in my mind, now this is me, from my mind, it's based in the teachings of God. I understand what God denotes for mothers. I understand that. I don't understand all the ramifications of that because I can't be a mother. And I will never be a mother. But yet, society's ideas confuse me. You know, I've heard people say, well, we've got to stick with the science of motherhood, of fatherhood. I hate to break it to you guys, but I took biology in high school. And then I went off to college. And I took this other subject called biology. Now, I understand that was a ways back. But I have a concept of motherhood. I have a concept of fatherhood. And folks, I've been around animals all my life. And that just builds upon what I learned in biology, was the concept of reproduction. I guess we could use that word. This morning, I would like to consider a small part of how I view from the outside looking in concerning motherhood. In Proverbs 31, beginning in verse 28, it says, "Her children rise up and bless her, her husband also, and he praises her, saying, Many daughters have done nobly, but you excel them all." You know, we think about our mothers and how blessed we are just to have them bring us into this world. Without a mother, it couldn't happen. Well, the reality is that maybe they struggled in life and wasn't as motherly as we wanted or we expected. But still, they brought us into this world. Now, from my perspective, is I'm thankful to my mother for bringing me into this world and all that she did for me throughout my life. As a husband, I got that pretty well figured out. And guys, if you want to know how to be a good husband, meet me after and I'll tell you the 2 words to say to be a great husband. Yes, ma'am. I praise my wife for being a mother to our children. It's a blessing. I praise her for all that she has done and continues to do for her children and her grandchildren. In my perception, motherhood is a struggle. And it begins by bringing life into this world. Now in Psalm 139, going down to verse 13, it says, "For you formed my inward parts. You wove me in my mother's womb. I will give thanks to you, for I am fearful and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works, and my soul knows it very well." Now the psalmist is denoting the idea of God creating an individual within the womb of a precious woman. And I guarantee you, in my biology class, that's the only place that it could work. Now, I understand they make things in petri dishes and all of that, but we're talking about humanity here. We're not talking about extracurricular stuff. I have the concept of bringing life into the world. And I had that because I was very close to it 3 times. And the things that ladies go through to bring life into this world it's a struggle. I guarantee it for the ladies, it's a struggle. But it is so much a blessing. It's just beyond in my mind to think about. We've been keeping up with an emu of recent. And emus, the female lays the clutch of eggs, but the male sets the eggs 2 months. not eating, and not drinking. I'm going to tell you, if to have children, if I had to set the eggs for 2 months, we ain't doing that. But our wives, our mothers, went through 9 months to bring us and others into this world. And I praise them for that. That's hard. But you know what it says over in John chapter 16 and verse 21. Jesus talking about the struggle of becoming a mother, going through all the labor and the childbirth and all of those things. And yeah, I know about that stuff. But not experiencing that stuff. But what does it say there? He's making a comparison, an illustration. He says, whenever a woman is in labor, she has pain because her hour has come. But when she gives birth to the child, she no longer remembers the anguish because of the joy of that child has been born into the world. And it ain't easy to bring life into this world. It's tough. But how many ladies, how many of these sweet mothers, a little while later, they come along and they say, well, we ought to have another. And I'm thinking to myself, after what you went through, oh yeah, it'd be fine. Yeah. And that's fine. That's the way God made us. But whenever they get those children along, they have to rear those children. Now, I believe there's a difference, yet a sameness in rearing children and educating children. But yes, without education, there can be no rearing. Without rearing, there can be no education. But I want to divide those a little bit. We, as parents, pray that our children are the best they can be. And I know mothers who want the very best for their children. They agape love those precious children. They love them dearly. Well, it says in Genesis 4, verses 1 and 2, now the man had a relation with his wife Eve, and she conceived and gave birth to Cain. And she said, I have gotten a man-child with the help of the Lord. And she gave birth to his brother Abel, and Abel was the keeper of the flock, and Cain was the tiller of the ground. Now, as far as I understand, these are the first two births in the world. And can you imagine Eve going through all of that stuff? Because we're out in the world now. We're not in the Garden of Eden. And she brings forth a son. And then she brings forth another son. And she says, thank you, God, how great are things. Again, my perception. But what happened? Verse 8, Genesis chapter 4. Cain told Abel his brother, and it came about when they were in the field that Cain rose up against Abel and his brother and killed him. You know, we can rear our children. Mothers can rear their children. And things like this happens. We can do our very best. Mothers can do their very best. But it's still up to the child to make their own choices. And I have sat and wept with mothers because their children have made other choices. Let's just put it that way. But while we've got them, while these ladies have these little children, and you know, they bond, the mother-child bond is so strong. They've got to feed them everything, bring them up the best they can, and we can only do the best we can. In Proverbs chapter 23 and verse 19, it says, "Listen, my son, and be wise, and direct your heart in the way. Let your father and mother be glad, and let her rejoice who gave birth to you. Give me your heart, my son, and let your eyes delight in my ways." You know, we can guide and direct and rear children, and a lot of that's mothers. Guys, I'll get after you in a week or a month or so. But, you know, mothers do so much from my perspective for these kids, these youngsters. They're working, they're constantly trying to move them in the right direction. But in all of this, even though it's a struggle, and it's a struggle with children, there's no doubt about that. Every time we turn around, we get some other disaster, it seems like. Some worse than others, some better, you know, whatever it may be. Ladies, we have to endure. And we have to remember, even though bringing life into this world is very difficult, we can do it. Educators. Our ladies are the greatest educators. Our children must be taught. Now, kids pick up everything, but every person born into this world is taught. Now, there are some innate abilities that we might have. But where does our children get their learning? Well, part of it is from their mothers. In Titus chapter 2, verse 3, it says, "Older women likewise are to be reverent in behavior, not malicious gossips or enslaved to too much wine." Now listen to the last part. That's where I was getting to. Teaching what is good. That's their job. That's what they're doing. They're teaching their children what is good. And I would denote that what is godly. Verse 4. "So that they may encourage the young women to love their husbands and love their children. Be sensible, pure, workers at home, kind, being subject to their own husbands, so that the word of God will not be dishonored." They have a big job of educating in their realm. And especially the girls. Now, in my perspective, it's kind of hard to work with girls. Girls hard. I don't know why. I don't know how boys would be because I've never raised any boys. But mothers relate to girls. And I don't care how old your daughters get, they still relate to you different than they do from their dad. And I see that, like I say, this is from my perspective. That's just what I see in our family. Is the girls are always doing something. You know, they're always got something going on, and they got mom right there with them, and they got everything under control and whatever's going on. So, perspective. And again, Psalms 127, "These precious children, whether you're a mother or a father, they are a blessing. Even when there's a struggle. Let's look at Psalm 127, verse 3. It says, "Behold, children are a gift of the Lord. The fruit of the womb is a reward." And that's true. They are a reward. They are our legacy. Sometimes it's hard, but we're thankful that God has blessed us. And I weep with mothers who've lost children. It breaks my heart. But what's even worse, I guess, to me is children that turn their backs on their mothers and turn their backs on God. But still, they're a blessing, especially when you think about all it took to create them. Motherhood is also a ministry. It is training. In Proverbs 1, verse 7 through 9, it says, "The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Fools despise wisdom and instruction. Hear, my son, your father's instruction, and do not forsake your mother's teaching. Indeed, they are a grateful wreath to your head and ornaments to your neck." We must teach our children, because what they learn will dictate their lives. And truly, children will veer off the path that we would like them to go. And then they're going to become adults. And they're going to make mistakes. But we must train them from infancy in the way that they should go with God. And again, children are bombarded with all this stuff out here in the world. But the godly mother will instill in that child God's truth. The mother's prayer for her children, the Christian mother's prayer for her children, is seen in Proverbs 22:6. "Train up a child in the way he should go, and even when he is old, he will not depart from it." That starts in infancy. Doesn't mean there's not going to be struggles along the way, along the road, because there is. There's going to be problems. But if we instill God's truth in these children, and ladies, y'all have a big hand at that. Gentlemen, I'll talk to you about this after a while. But the ladies have a lot to do with that, but not everything. Mothers deserve our honor. Exodus 20, verses 12 through 7, or verse 12, says, "Honor your father and your mother, that your days may be prolonged in the land which the Lord your God gives you." Now, this is in the Ten Commandments. Honor your mother, because she is your mother. God created you within her. Give her honor. Sometimes some mothers are probably difficult to honor, but we honor them as our mothers. We may disagree with a lot of things about the situation, but we honor her because she is our mother. And we are to obey our mothers in the Lord, and fathers, of course. Ephesians 6, 1 through 3. "Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor your father and mother, which is the first commandment with a promise, so that it may be well with you and that you may live long on the earth." We need to give honor to our mothers. And we need to care for them. In 1 Timothy chapter 5, beginning there in verse 1, it says, "Do not sharply rebuke the older man, but rather appeal to him as a father, to the younger men as brothers, to older women as mothers, and to younger women as sisters with all purity. Honor widows who are widows indeed. But if any widow has children or grandchildren, they must first learn to practice piety in regard to their own family, and to make some return to their parents, for this is acceptable in the sight of God." Mama's going to get old one of these days, and she's going to need help. And we need to do what we can to help her. And sometimes it's really difficult, and I know you guys understand this reality. But we take care of her because she took care of us. And one of these days, and I want to talk to our younger people out there on the video. I don't care who you are. One of these days, your mother's going to get old. And she's going to need your help. And I know you're busy, but she still needs you. Because one of these days, she's not going to be there anymore. Now, I stand on the outside and I'll look in to my blessed woman, my wife. She misses her mama terrible. She does. Now, I understand that. Because so do I. I miss her mama terrible too. I miss my own mother terrible. And she misses my mother terrible. But one of these days, mama's not going to be there. And you just can't pick up the phone and call them. So care for them now. Love them now. Be with them now. Learn all you can from them now. Because one day they won't be there. And that's probably a whole nother